It's all going down. Tyrone Bowman live, gather around everybody, a very hot topic. Let's talk about it. I'll give you a few seconds to make up your minds and see if you want to come on. You know how I roll over here, because once I get started, I'm going to be on a roll with this one. In the world of law, people need to be very, very careful on how they arrest, arraign, and charge someone in a rush to judgment to get what they perceive to be a major conviction. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove. That's how the legal system works. I'll say that again. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove. You can know for a fact that it appears on paper that you have a perfect case, but can you prove beyond a reasonable shadow of a doubt that what you're talking about is a winning hand? I'm going to talk about an article in USA Today. The headline reads, could Diddy be released from prison? Rapper scores a legal win in sentence appeals process, close quote. This article was written for USA Today by Edward Sagara. I guess he is a USA Today writer or columnist. I don't know, but I am going to talk about this article here because it's very important. Let's get down to it. As I'm getting down to it, before I do, I want to say thank you to one of our subscribers who sent in a donation toward our new studio that I've been working on to get built as quickly as possible. And if you'd like to help with it, be a contributor. All you have to do is send $1 to Cash App. That's it. Because we have over 2,500 subscribers on this channel. And if individuals decide to send in $1, it'll be greatly appreciated. Simply type in Tyrone Bowman in Cash App, Tyrone Bowman Sr., $PIEXEL number 4. And all monies that I've received so far, they have gone directly to our graphic designer. It's not for me. I want to have a more professional look for Tyrone Bowman Live. So if I'm going to be in this, I've got to be in it to win it. I'll be right back. Give me a moment. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Let's get started on this topic here. Could Diddy be released from prison? The rapper and mogul has scored a legal win in the sentence appeal process. Sean Diddy Combs may have a new legal home, but his eye remains on freedom. The embattled music mogul's bid for an early release from prison gained momentum after a judge signed off on expediting the appeal process on Monday, which was yesterday, according to court documents obtained by USA Today. This is where the prosecution has a major problem. In their rush to judgment, they overcharged him. Now, I'm not saying that he is the most moral, decent, upright, righteous person on the planet. But what I am saying is this. The prosecutors, in their rush to judgment, in their rush to get a major victory, a major score, and a conviction, they overcharged him. And as a result of overcharging him, every major felonious charge that they had on the table, he was found not guilty of. Even with all the individuals who testified against him, he still was found not guilty. So we're going to go into this on today. And when you're dealing with someone who has substantial means on his level, he's still a billionaire, he's not a pauper. He can afford the best lawyers, he can afford to spend the money that it's going to take to win on appeal. And don't be surprised if he's released from prison early. And I'm going to talk about the judge in this case in a moment. Now, according to the article in USA Today, in October, Combs was 56, was sentenced to 50 months, roughly 4 years in prison, after he was convicted on sex trafficking charges. They gave him 4 years on sex trafficking charges. Apparently, it seems like the judge was angry because the jury did not convict him on every major account, because the prosecutors did not convince the jury beyond a reasonable shadow of a doubt that their case had plausibility factor here. So people are mad with the jury because they didn't find him guilty the way folk wanted him to be found. I said people are angry because they didn't find him guilty on every charge that they wanted him to be found guilty on. Combs, who had been held at the Brooklyn Metropolitan Detention Center since his September 2024 arrest, was reportedly transferred to FCI Fort Dix in New Jersey on the 30th of October. The Grammy Award-winning rapper is currently scheduled to be released from prison on May 8th of 2028, according to the Federal Bureau of Prisons online database. Between now and 2028, the appeal process will be ongoing, and they're going to have to either release him or grant him time served. There's a strong possibility that he may be released from prison earlier than anticipated, because his lawyers are not going to just take this conviction lying down. And the leverage that his lawyers are going to address, that they're addressing during this appeal process, at the top of the list is judicial misconduct. Was the judge overly harsh and cruel when he decided to sentence Mr. Combs? Number two, prosecutorial misconduct. Did the prosecutors overstep their boundary in excessively charging Mr. Combs? I'm not dealing with his guilt or innocence. I'm dealing with the legality factor here, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I'm dealing with. That's why I'm taking my time to rip this article apart and debate it and offer commentary on it. This goes for everybody who is accused of any type of crime. You have a right to due process according to the Constitution of the United States. You have a right to a nominal bail. In today's climate, judges excessively set bail at a high cost because they don't want people being out on bail to be able to prepare and fight for themselves in terms of preparation for trial. That's why bail is so high. Now, is bail warranted in some instances? Individuals, the answer is absolutely yes. Because some people have committed terrible, terrible, terrible crimes. What Combs did when we all saw that video that was released on Instagram was despicable. It was horrible. It was downright disgusting. That type of psychological, physical abuse that Cassie endured at the hands of Mr. Combs should never happen. And her testimony before the court, it did weigh in a major, major way. Now, Combs is not taking this conviction lightly. He wants out of prison, so he's going to try to use every legal recourse and legal loophole to get out before 2028. Because there are also special conditions attached to his release once he leaves prison. That's not the end of it. See, some people think because individuals are released from prison that that's it. No, when you're on probation, you've got special conditions attached to your freedom. So essentially, you're still in prison. You're just in a prison without walls when you're on probation, i.e., ankle monitor. i.e., house arrest, mandatory uh, of visitations by the parole officer without notification, mandatory drug and urine analysis, mandatory. So they could get you on anything. And besides, individuals out on parole, they got to pay the parole supervision fee. So don't think because somebody's out on parole that they're home free. That's what halfway house is for. You're halfway in prison and you're halfway free. Combs is dealing with a lot of stuff in his mind. In a ruling from Judge Beth Robinson in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, Robinson granted Combs's legal request to fast track the appeals process scheduled to kick off in December. Why is it being fast tracked? I'll tell you why. Because the sitting judge, Judge Beth Robinson, has already examined and read over the briefs from both parties, and she sees legal recourse, legal loopholes there in Sean's case, Diddy's case. Because if not, she would have never granted his appeal. Ladies and gentlemen, whether you like it or not, the man still has a right to due process. He can go all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States like anybody else. Of course, you're going to pay a lot of money every step of the way. The average person cannot afford to continue to fight through the appeal process. Who has money in excess of $30,000 to $50,000 to pay a lawyer every time he files a brief that is paralegal prepared? And they just show up to represent in court and to mutter a few words. And they picked up 50 grand. Who has money to hire a legal team that consists of experts, expert analysis, and top lawyers in the world? Like the case with the late Michael Jackson. We all saw the case. It was televised and etc. Well, no, it wasn't televised, my bad. They had graphic illustrations. Michael spent millions upon millions of dollars in order not to go to prison. And he hired the best lawyers in America to represent him. And on the witness stand, his accusers were vigorously interrogated and mutilated, eviscerated verbally, and destroyed. Be careful what you ask for. So the judge has already seen that there's a possible error, prosecutorial error. The U.S. government, the opposing party in Combs' federal case, did not oppose the proposed schedule. Per previous court documents, USA Today has reached out to Combs' representatives for comment. Why did they not contest against it? I'll tell you why. Because they don't stand a chance to win. That's why. The prosecution is going to lose during the appeal process. Some of the people who see this video might not like it, and that's okay too. Because you don't like something does not mean that it's not legally acceptable for him to go through the appeal process. The legal win comes after attorneys for Combs filed a notice of appeal in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York on October 20. Following, a federal sex trafficking investigation and a series of sexual abuse civil lawsuits, Combs was arrested on charges of, sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation to engage in prostitution. I'm going to look up all this and we're going to break it down here. Let's see exactly how they charged him and why they lost on these major issues. And there's a reason why they lost. See, the news will only give you tidbits. They won't go deep into the analysis of the charges. Racketeering, I'm writing all this down while I'm talking. And transportation to engage in prostitution. I'm going to break all this down because this is vitally important as we discuss this today. And I like for people to be informed. I get so tired of seeing snippets of stuff in the news because that's how people get themselves messed up by not going into in-depth coverage. So Combs was arrested on charges of sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation to engage in prostitution. All right, let's look up the first one. Let's look up sex trafficking. Let's break it down. This is what sex trafficking is. Now, this is the first charge that they charged him with. Quote, sex trafficking is illegal under the U.S. federal law, primarily defined by the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000, known as TVPA, and detailed in statutes like 18 U.S. Section Code 1591. Federal law defines sex trafficking as the recruitment, harboring, transportation, or obtaining of a person for commercial sex using force, fraud or coercion, or if the person is under 18. Penalties for violation can be severe, including life in prison, especially in cases involving minors or where serious injury or death occurs. Now, that's what they charged him with. That was the first charge. And they knew that that charge had the potential to inflame a jury. That's why they charged him with it. I'm not dealing with this guilt or innocence. I'm dealing with the prosecutorial's mishaps at this point. That's what I'm talking about. They wanted him to get life in prison, so they charged him with that charge. Of course, he was found not guilty on that charge. Let's deal with racketeering. Let's deal with the racketeering charge. Racketeering is a pattern of illegal activities committed to gain profit, often through an organized crime enterprise and by using threats, extortion, or other crimes like fraud, drug trafficking, and extortion. The Racketeer Influence and Corruptions Act, known as RICO, the same one that they used to get R. Kelly charged with and convicted on. That's why they always come up with this particular charge, because they know it's going to inflame the jury. And this is the primary law used to prosecute these crimes, requiring a pattern of racketeering activity which involves at least two crimes within a 10-year period. So it involves illegal activities, profit, motive, enterprise, pattern of activity. So the RICO Act law was created to combat organized crime. So what have they done? They used this all the time. This is a pattern. That was the second charge. They used the RICO Act, which was used for mafiosa alleged acts of criminal enterprise. Of course, he was found not guilty on that. Let's deal with the one to engage in prostitution. Because this one is important as well. This is heavy, but it's got to be talked about. All right, here we go. To engage in prostitution. Punishment for transporting someone for prostitution in the U.S. can be severe, with penalties varying by the age of the victim and the specific federal law or state law violated. Under federal law, the penalties can include fines and imprisonment for up to 10 years for transporting an adult, and as a mandatory 10 years to life imprisonment for transporting a minor. State law also apply, often carrying separate penalties for related offenses like soliciting or aiding prostitution. So that is under the subsection 18 for prostitution code is 18 USC subsection 2423. The transportation of adults is 18 United States Code subsection 2421. Lastly, travel to engage in illicit sexual conduct, 18 United States Code subsection 2423, which, if convicted, you can get 30 years in prison. All these charges, sex trafficking, racketeering, transportation to engage in prostitution. He was found not guilty on all of them because the district attorneys could not prove and convince the jury that this man engaged in all those things. And that's what upset them. That's why they charged him, because they wanted him to be found guilty on those charges that ultimately, hopefully, that would lead to him getting life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. And to put the icing on the cake, they knew that this was going to definitely get a conviction somewhere along the line, the Mann Act. And what is the Mann Act? You've heard a lot about it, so let's define it. On this channel, we don't engage in innuendos, fallacies, we deal with facts. Because when you have stipulated facts, you can have a plausible argument. The Mann Act, here it is. The Mann Act is described as, or White Slave Traffic Act, is a 1910 U.S. federal law that makes it illegal to transport individuals across state lines for the purpose of prostitution or other sexual activity. Originally intended to combat forced prostitution, the law was written broadly and has been used to prosecute many individuals, though its enforcement today focuses on sex trafficking, especially involving minors. So it deals with the original intent, the broader application, and the modern enforcement. So the act was passed to address concerns about forced prostitution and what was termed white slavery at the time. It criminalized transporting women and girls across state lines for debauchery or any other immoral purpose, quote, close quote. He was found guilty on the Mann Act. And as a result of being found guilty on it, the judge gave him 4 years. How come the judge didn't give him more than 4 years? Why was the judge not more forceful after reprimanding him verbally during the sentencing hearing? The Bad Boy Records founder went to trial in May, during which prosecutors presented their case that Combs allegedly led a, quote, criminal enterprise, end quote, that operated on sex trafficking, kidnapping, drug offenses, and forced labor, among other crimes. They could not prove that that actually happened. But they were adamant in the press that this is exactly what happened, but they weren't able to prove it during the course of that trial. And if you can't prove it in the court of law, an individual is going to be found not guilty. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove. You have to be able to prove not only the charges that you have, but you have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that this person, the defendant, actually did these things. Where's your evidence? They couldn't even get one scintilla, iota of a doubt in the minds of any juror on these these major issues concerning Combs. So the answer is this: stop overcharging people and use charges that you know that you can get a conviction on. Because when you overcharge, you set yourself up for failure, like in a game of cards. A lot of people sit at the table and they bluff their way through the game, knowing that they don't have the winning hand. And all the smacking and the talking that they do, eventually, you're going to have to put up or show up at the table, or shut up at the table. And when you lay your hands out, they find out they were just bluffing. That's what a lot of prosecutors do. They're constantly bluffing. So they overcharge, inflame a potential jury, inflame them. Like in the case of so many individuals, they wonder why they walk free, because these prosecutors keep overcharging people. And when you get down to the real nitty gritty, it's who can talk the best, who's got that smickety smack, and who can convince a jury that their argument is the best argument. And if your lawyer or lawyers are not articulate and persuasive, they'll never convince a jury. Never. The late Johnny Cochran was so successful because not only did he have the education and the acclaimed letters behind his name, but he was also streetwise. And he knew his way through the judicial system. And when you know your way through a judicial system, it is hard to take a quote unquote a street lawyer who knows the streets, knows the language of the streets, and knows the language of the academia, and puts it together in a cacophony verbally to influence a potential jury to find their client not guilty. So the rapper has denied all charges brought against him. For Combs and his legal team, the music mogul has been serving his debt to society. In the request for an expedited appeal schedule, filed October 29, Combs' attorneys noted that the rapper has already served approximately 14 months of his 50-month sentence due to the prison time he's accumulated since his September 2024 arrest. I know high-stakes criminals who were convicted on every charge and walked out of court. Walked out of court. Never sentenced. Never. Destiny Combs may be eligible for reductions on his prison sentence under the Residential Drug Abuse Program and the First Step Act, both of which aim to reduce recidivism among prisoners through targeted rehabilitation programs. To ensure that Mr. Combs could meaningfully benefit from any appellate ruling vacating his sentence, we have proposed a schedule that would expedite this court's consideration of Mr. Combs' appeal, quote, close quote, the league in filing stated. Per the approved expedited schedule, Combs' opening brief and appendix for his appeal were due by December 23rd, followed by the U.S. government's brief deadline of February 2026. Combs' request to the government's brief will be subsequently be due by March 13, 2026. And oral arguments can begin as early as April. It's going to be an uphill battle. As I used to say, sometimes in the world of professional sports, it's going to be a brawny book. People are going to be glued to the internet, to social media, to their televisions, to the newspapers, because they want to find out, will he win on appeal? I don't know. He may not. But the fact that his lawyers are vigorously approaching this is setting the precedent in the terms that it is going to be a fight. I said it's going to be a fight in the appellate courts. And if he loses in the appellate court, he'll go to the federal court. If he loses in the federal courts, he'll go to the U.S. Circuit Court. If he loses in the U.S. Circuit Court, he goes to the Supreme Court. It's a long battle. You better dig in, because Combs and his team, they got the money to fight the prosecutors with every step of the way. So there you have it. That is the breakdown of what's going on in the Sean Diddy Combs' case. Yes, it's all a game. I agree. It's a political game. Listen, law is nothing more than psychological games. It's all psychological. That's why within the world of imprisonment, they try to break you down psychologically and mentally to wear you down physically. When they falsely arrested me and charged me and convicted me and sentenced me, I vowed before Almighty God, I ain't never confessing to something I never did. And that's one reason why I'm becoming a criminal defense attorney, because some folk will have hell to pay when everything is said and done. Once I get my record clear, I will be a force to be reckoned with within the legal system, and I'm not playing. Some of my dogs that I know who watch this channel, that I did time with, those 10 years, I walked with them, I talked with them, I worked on their legal work as a jailhouse lawyer. Many of them got reduction of sentences. Many of them had their charges vacated. Many of them walked scot-free because of legal loopholes and overcharging. And I was trained by two lawyers that I met who shall remain anonymous at all times. But they taught me the basic fundamentals of law. And I studied that Constitution like nobody's business. And I learned it back and forth and in between. And they're the ones who encouraged me to go to school and become a real lawyer, TY, so you can become an advocate. That's why I'm forceful in my speech, because I've lived it, I've walked through it, I've seen the dishonesty on the other side of the penal injustice system. I've seen it firsthand. I've lived it, I've experienced it. And now I'm on the other side. That's why I will become an advocate for true victims of crime. Don't get it twisted. I will fight tooth and nail for true victims of crime. But I'll become a person's worst nightmare if I find out that you are a real pervert, a perpetrator of injustice. You will not find a friend in me. I will be a forceful advocate for those who are wrongfully accused. Yes, I said it. Well, sometimes I can't help but be emotional, my brother. I try to remain calm when I'm talking, but I'm an emotional brother at times because I've lived this thing. And I don't like injustice of any kind. One of my favorite books to read is The Street Lawyer by John Grisham. Currently, I'm reading The Appeal. One of my favorite books are the Bible, The Count of Monte Cristo, 48 Laws of Power. Oh, yes, I read excessively. The injustices of a judicial system must be addressed, whether folk like it or not. Unless it happens to your friends, your family, your relatives, your associates, your husband, your wife, you don't have no empathy for them. What do you think those who work within the system use to try to justify their actions for corruption? They use that same constitution, the same judicial system that they deny everybody else from. All the time. Oh, my bad. I apologize. So let's get it straight. If y'all want me to continue, give me a thumbs up because I have to take a quick break. If you don't want me to continue, I'll end the video. Let me know. Do I understand? Or do I stand under? Quote, close quote. In a few moments, I'm going to have to take a break. I'll be right back. Tyrone Bowman live right after this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being patient with me. Tyrone Bowman Live. I'm talking about this article regarding Sean Diddy Combs that was written in USA Today. The headline reads, could Diddy be released from prison? The rapper scores legal win in sentence appeal process. Now, as I was saying before the break, the prosecutor prosecutors made several major mishaps while overcharging him with sex trafficking, racketeering, transportation to engage in prostitution. Finally, they got a conviction on the Mann Act. And as I was saying, a lot of people don't understand how the judicial system works. It's this simple. This is how it works. Somebody accuses somebody of something, they run to the courts, they file the complaint, or to the police. The police come out, they arrest the person based upon what that person said. Or somebody commits a crime, the police come, they find them, and in some instances, they got to get rough, they got to do what they got to do to get them arrested, subdued. And let me just say this regarding many people who work in law enforcement. I have people in my family that's involved in law enforcement. I don't have a problem with law enforcement, the individuals who work in it. I have a problem when you're breaking the law to enforce the law and then try to justify it. That's where the problem comes in at. And then when you're caught, you lawyer up, you hide behind the union reps because you don't want to cooperate, because you think you can get away with it. And in some instances, they do. You know, they do get away with it. But that's a slippery slope for a lot of people to try. Because what ends up happening is that you'll pay for your act of injustice either through the legal system or life itself or God himself will repay you before you get off this earth. And then you'll still have to face the Almighty on the divine day of judgment with all human beings, whether you are atheistic, agnostic, Christian, Muslim, whatever you want to call yourself. We all will face the Almighty. Now, the legal system does not favor the poor. It was invented for the rich. Are you hearing me? It was invented for the rich to protect them, protect their interests, to protect their assets, to protect them against any criminal time whatsoever, because they're supposed to be the producers and when it comes to commerce and in the economy and productivity and blah, 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 blah. So they're more favored in the court of law, more so than everyday people, because everyday people, they can't afford good lawyers, they get public pretenders. In most instances, they're inexperienced lawyers right out of law school working right in the district attorney's office. They're all in the same office, ADA, Assistant District Attorney, trying to hone their skills. And many of them are good. I've met some of them. And futuristically, they're going to go on to be some great district attorneys and prosecutors. Then I've met some that are lousy. They can't speak properly. They can't memorize anything. They can't talk without not looking down. They don't know how to look a jury in the eyes. They don't know how to look the judge in the eyes. They don't come there. They don't come to court ready. And many times, clients lose based on appearance. Are you listening to me? There was a woman. If you don't believe me, look up the case for yourself. She committed a terrible act toward a young man that was in her care as a school teacher. And she had engaged in several illegal sexual acts with a young man. Do you know what the judge said? She is too pretty to be locked up in prison. That's what the judge said. She was too pretty to be locked up in prison. No, I have no intentions of working in the system because my job is going to be as an advocate. I already know how the system works. I care less about working in the system. Total 100% efficacy work on my behalf. The judge let her walk free. gave her a little bit of house arrest. Meanwhile, as I talked in an earlier video today, what about the young men of the Duke University lacrosse team who were unjustly arrested, unjustly criminalized, unjustly charged of raping a black stripper? And Nifon, the then district attorney down in Louisiana, who was up for re-election, knew that it was a lie. He knew that the DNA test had already come back before the election took place, and he used it as a tool to get reelected, because he told the black people down in Louisiana that he would ensure the conviction of these young men. They were incensed. They were outraged. Look that one up too. That several young white men were accused of allegedly raping a black stripper. And it was all a lie. Duke University had to pay them millions of dollars. Their families hired the best attorneys because they were wealthy. They paid their lawyers in excess of $1 million each to represent their sons. And during the course of the trial, it came to light that prosecutorial misconduct on the worst level occurred with Nifon. He was disbarred. He was repudiated. He was reprimanded. He better be glad they didn't lock him up in prison. Because she was an outright liar. She knew she hadn't been raped, and the semen that they found in her, it did not belong to those young men. Their lives should have never been disrupted or destroyed. Right is right, ladies and gentlemen, and wrong is wrong. I'm not going to go along with somebody because you're black. Too many white people have been unjustly accused of things they never said and never did. What? Too many of them. Sometimes the race card is overplayed in this country. I said it. Yes, I said it. Sometimes the race card is overplayed. Everything is not about racism in America. People would love to believe it because the hucksters and the advocates, they're profiting greatly at the expense of it. What about individuals who are unjustly locked up in prison because of what somebody said? So the young men, once they were found, charges were all dropped, then the provost of the school, or whatever they call themselves, the chancellor, the chairman of the school, wanted them to stay. They said, hell no, we're not staying here. You're going to pay us and we're moving on. And they both, all of them went on to become lawyers to fight against injustice because they know firsthand what it's like. That's why I'm becoming a criminal justice advocate. You all have no idea how much studying I have to do, how many tests I have to take constantly, but it's going to be worth it in the end. Because becoming an advocate and being involved in true advocacy work and fighting for those who can't fight for themselves, speaking for those who cannot speak for themselves, advocating for those who cannot advocate for themselves, it is a divine call. For me, I can't speak for others, but for me, it's a divine call. As I said before the break, my favorite books are, number 1, the Bible. Number 2, The Count of Monte Cristo. Number 3, Street Lawyer. Number 4, 48 Laws of Power. There's so many other books I've read. Think and Grow Rich, The Master Key to Riches. So, we're in a battle. We're in a fight. And Combs is going to get relief somewhere through this appeals process, whether individuals like it or not. Nobody said he was a saint. Nobody said he didn't deserve to be charged. And the reason why prosecutors in many instances lose cases is because of excessive overcharging. When you overcharge somebody in an attempt to get a conviction, you're guaranteed to lose. Don't you just simply charge them. And I can talk this way because I've lived it. I've been through it. I've experienced it. I know what it is firsthand. I didn't accept it then, and I'm not going to accept it now. Injustice is injustice. Right is right, wrong is wrong. The largest prison in the world is San Quentin. It's in California. And some people, they've committed some terrible, heinous crimes. And they have to be in prison. They have to pay for what they've done. But you can't put everybody in one barrel and say, okay, everybody's guilty. Because when they arrest police officers, what's the first thing we'll talk about? Their accommodations, their awards, their service to the community, all these different type of things. Recently in the news, all these cops and stuff that are being arrested for corruption, from cocaine to prostitution, all in between. What is going on? The appeal process in the Sean Diddy Combs' case is underway. It's in effect. For him, it's called Operation Freedom. The job of his attorneys is to vigorously repudiate and dispute each and every element that the prosecutors will bring to try to justify the conviction to remain a conviction. They're going for the whole kit and caboodle. They want the entire sentence vacated. That's what they want. They want the sentence vacated. And I will try my best to find the appeal documents so I can read them on my program here and talk about it. It may be boring to some people, but for some folk, it'll be fascinating to learn what goes on in the law. So over here, I have to deal with evidence. I can't deal with hearsay. Can't deal with innuendos. I can't deal with a hypothesis. I have to deal with facts. So beware, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're watching this program from, in America and around the world, know your rights. Don't associate with people, places, and things where you shouldn't be. Don't just be so quick to get in a friend's car. You don't know if they got drugs in the car, marijuana, guns. And if they arrest them, you're going to be called the co-conspirator. And ain't nobody got no money in the family to get you out on bail. A joyride can lead to a nightmare. Did you hear what I said? A joyride can lead to an unceremonious nightmare. No, I'm not Malcolm X. Malcolm X was Malcolm X. I'm Tyrone Bowman. That's who I am. People don't like it when you speak clearly. Some don't. And you can articulate your cause and stand firm on the assertions and claims that you make. The judicial system does not favor the poor. So if you think that, you might as well believe in the Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, the Good Fairy, and all the other things that Walt Disney invented. You might as well believe in that fairy tale world if you think that the judicial system favors everyday people. It is against them. Even before you walk in the door, you have been found guilty because the prosecutors and the judges, they've already met along, in some instances, with your attorney behind closed doors, and they already decided how it's going to play out. And you're just the actor sitting there. Know what goes on. Deals are made in the business world on the golf course. I found this, I'm looking for this article about how much the billionaires have made in the first year of Trump's presidency. It's all about the money, y'all. Follow the money. If you want to find out who's guilty, follow the money. Remember the money game with Brad Pitt? The money game. Follow the money. When you follow the money, you will find the culprits every single time. And if you don't have the money to combat what comes up against you, you're not going to be able to survive. One day I'll tell you exactly how much money was spent during my trial, but it won't be today. It was a lot. So whether people like it or not, whether you agree with what happened with Sean Diddy Combs or disagree, we're dealing with the legality. Why did they overcharge him to begin with? Why were they so excessively hell-bent on overcharging this man? They swooped down on all his properties like he had committed the worst crime since Al Capone. They raided all his properties. They handcuffed his sons. From day one, in their minds, he was guilty. What about the presumption of innocent until proven guilty? All right, everybody, I'm going to close this out by saying this. The presumption of innocence is afforded to everyone in a court of law. But unfortunately, judges, prosecutors, district attorneys, they have already found you guilty even before the trial gets underway. So hopefully, on this channel, I will continue to be educational and motivational at the same time. All right, y'all, I got to go. Hope this enlightened somebody's mind today. Never surrender. Thank you all for watching. Never quit.